Meet the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the METS Mets of New York town. Oh, the butcher and the baker and the people on the streets, where do they go? To meet the Mets! Oh, they're hollering and cheering and they're jumping in their seats. Where do they go? To meet the Mets! All the fans are true to the orange and blue, so hurry up and come on down, 'cause we got ourselves a ball club, the Mets of New York town. Give 'em a yell! Give 'em a hand! And let 'em know you're rooting in the stand. Meet the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the METS Mets of New York town, of New York town.
How are we doing, Mets and baseball fans? Thank you all so much for chiming in for another live stream on the channel and taking a different topic than what we've been discussing more than anything else in live streams over really the past month on the Mets and their present baseball operations and or GM search. And we'll get back to talking about that live tomorrow, right around the same time, 7 p.m. Eastern time, as long as there's no breaking news in between. So I know there's already been plenty of things I would like to update you guys on, but we'll get into that tomorrow night, knowing that today is officially the first day of the MLB offseason, as many of you guys know, because yes, the Atlanta Braves did in fact win the World Series. So we can just end this horrendous year of being a Mets fan and put it to bed, hopefully. But again, kudos to the Braves. I'm definitely someone that wasn't happy to see them win, but knowing how they got there, especially with losing Acuna, Ozuna, Soroka, and everyone else that they lost to make those trade deadline acquisitions and really propel them to the top. That's something that the Mets can learn from, and same thing with a lot of other clubs in baseball. So definitely they were deserving it, wishing them the best. But now that we're in the offseason, free agency has begun. And even though that at the time of recording this, we are at November 3rd, it looks like, I don't believe actual free agents will hit the market. We're talking people that aren't minor leaguers. I don't believe they'll be hitting the market until around November 7th, November 8th. So this upcoming Sunday or Monday at the time of recording this right now. But no less, the Mets have 11 players that are currently no longer with the club. They're free agents. Now, whether they stay with the Mets or are parted with, and that's what we're going to be discussing in today's live stream. It's going to be extended discussion, breakdown each of these players one by one. So if you're just chiming in, thank you all so much for being here, folks. I'm going to go through everybody in the list now. See a lot of people talking in the chat. Again, like I said, we're going to go through every player. There are 11 free agents. The Mets are tied with two other clubs in the league this year with the most free agents that they currently have available. And they're obviously not going to bring them all back. So the question is, who exactly are they going to bring back? What kind of deals could we potentially see? What makes most sense for the Mets? And ultimately, what kind of impact, if at all, will the eventual president of baseball operations and or GM hires that come into place have on this? That's what we'll be getting into today, folks. So I see Gerald, great member on the channel. Sergeant, Brandon, going down the list further. Jesse, Dave, my good friend and subscriber. How you doing? Tyler, what's up, buddy? Mets, Brandon, DJ, Hector, what's up, buddy? Mike, Robert, Wiffle Ball, why can't I even read right now? I don't know why. Ariel, how's it going? Christina, my goodness, I don't know why that was so difficult. Sir Charles, Juan Diaz, great member on the channel. Brandon, Darren, my good friend, great member on the channel as well. Let's go down the list further. New subscriber, thank you so much for being here. MV, yes, we'll get into that a little bit. Michael Hoff, how's it going, my man? William and Sandy, great members. King Snow, Sergio, let's go Yanks. Mike, Keep going down the list. Unhinged Yanks, Unhinged Chiefs, Antonio, I should say. I'm good, bro. And you? What's up, buddy? Thank you for being here again. Just wanted to shout out everybody. Greg, Andrew, if I missed your name, please don't take it personally. It's going to happen. Amanda, how's it going? We're going to dive right into this one, though, folks. But you guys know the drill by now. Smash that like and subscribe button if you're excited for the live stream. We're doing something different because, again, it's a start of free agency. So it only feels fitting that we have our first free agency type live stream, something you guys are going to see probably endlessly on the channel in the coming months, depending on how the CBA is going to impact things in December. But no less, we're going to be talking about free agents a lot, basically throughout the entire offseason. But let's start with the guys that are currently from the Mets and seeing what their future holds. And I really want to know everyone's input that's watching this live, or if not, if you're watching a replay, let me know in the comments too. Who do you think is most deserving of staying, going, or the reality of these players staying or leaving the Mets? But getting into things now, folks, as we know, we got 11 people that we are currently working with. And yeah, this is an extensive list. As you can see from the top, it starts with Michael Conforto. We all know the story with him by now. Noah Syndergaard, Marcus Stroman, Javier Báez, Aaron Loup, Rich Hill, a.k.a. Dick Mound. Let's go. Jonathan Villar, Jeurys Familia, Brad Hand, Heath Hembree, and yes, Dellin Betances. Yes, Betances actually played for the New York Mets this year, believe it or not. Did not play much, but he did in fact play. But we're going to get into each of these guys one by one, as I mentioned already. And really, I'm going to share my initial thoughts on them. I've talked about some of these players already in previous videos where they were more warranted given the significance they've had on the club to this point. You're not going to see me do an individual video on if the Mets should bring back Brad Hand or not, but that's why we did ones on Báez, Stroman, Syndergaard, Conforto for a good reason. But let's expand out a little bit further here because I really haven't gotten the chance to ask you guys that are watching, at least through the live stream, what do you think is best? What do you think is most realistic here? And we're really going to try to break this down as best as we possibly can, folks. So again, thank you all so much for chiming in. We're about to get into this one. I'm going to see a bunch more comments quick, and I'll answer questions as we go, folks. Sports Media Mark. Of course, I remember you. Eli, how's it going? Brandon, Cool J, Ethan, Mike, Merlin Full, all you guys, thank you again for being here. Really does mean a lot, folks. Help us get to 100 likes by the end of the stream. You guys know the drill by now. And yes, I would also like to mention some breaking news because Tyler Burbeck is mentioning in the chat, and I mentioned it on Twitter already at the time being live here. But yes, Buster Posey does look like he is going to announce his retirement tomorrow. It was originally broken through a reporter from The Athletic. Definitely caught me off guard. Buster Posey, one of the best catchers in the game, one of the best catchers I've ever witnessed. He's going off on a complete high when it comes to having a huge bounce back year for the Giants. His age 34 season. I'm wishing him nothing but the best in retirement. That man's easily a Hall of Famer. Again, one of the best to do it. When I think of, the OG catchers in the game throughout my lifetime as a baseball fan, it starts with Buster and Yadi Molina, and those guys have really paved the way. And it's definitely I'm gonna miss seeing Buster, just how good he was all these years with the Giants. But I'm wishing him all the best in retirement, no less. Talk about if there's one way to go out, I just want to say that real quick. I love the fact that he's going out on a high note. I feel like there are a lot of players that not necessarily taint their legacy, but water it down a bit because they really extend their careers beyond what it should be, where their guys are clearly past their prime and they're having little impact, but maybe they don't know how to say goodbye to the game, or they're just trying to make themselves somewhat relevant for organizations, bouncing from different teams year to year after being a veteran, a franchise player for one singular club for upwards of a decade. But Buster is going out before he could even get to the point of really dropping in his overall performance. Outside of the injuries that he's done in his career, he's been unbelievably consistent. He's retiring as a 300-plus hitter, over 700 RBIs. Need I say more? All of his accolades as a catcher, just phenomenal stuff. So again, wishing him all the best in his retirement. But yeah, let's get into it, folks. So I want to ask everybody in the chat, you guys let me know if you guys want me to follow by the list, how I have it from top to bottom, from bottom to top, or is there one player you want me to start off in particular, and then we kind of go from there while discussing all these free agents on if they're going to be staying and leaving, what kind of contract we might be looking at. Mike talking about Juan Soto for the Mets at some point. I like the way you think, Mike. We'll dream until we can't anymore, right? Juan Diaz, talking about Dom for Chapman type thing. Again, we'll get into those discussions when the time's right. That's not what we're dealing with right now. So some of you guys are already saying top to bomb. And Marco, thank you for the compliment, my friend, from in Europe. Thank you so much. Yes, I know that we have our good friend Darren, great member on the channel, lives in the UK, part of Europe as well. So I don't know exactly where you're from, but I appreciate your support, my friend. Thank you, Marco. Hi in the chat for Marco. But all right, let's start at top to bomb. I know you said Familia, T Sour, but it looks like top to bomb is the common consensus here. I can talk briefly about Correa towards the end of the live stream. I'll hold that for the Q&A part. But Michael Conforto. Okay, so if you guys are new in the channel, if you haven't been following for too long, then you might be unaware that Michael Conforto is my favorite player. And I've said this plenty because it's true. There's a reason why I have him on the wall behind me. Thank you, Shadow Card Coach, a great member on the channel who sent this awesome, like big looking, life-size type card to me that says, congratulations, Wardy, on 5K. And you open it up, it has really cool photos of Conforto in it. But Michael Conforto has always been my favorite player as a Met. So I will say it is rather difficult at times to put my personal biases aside when I think about him, but I'm doing the absolute best I can here because I know who he is as a player. I know how poorly he was in 2021, and I know that the Mets are in a situation right now where there's a decent to strong likelihood that he is parted with. And what matters most to me as someone who's been following him his entire career, who's broken down his numbers both normal and advanced, breaking down the analytics and how he's performed. This was an anomaly of a year for Michael Conforto. And this is something that should not be weighed on his normal performance. I don't think you can look at Michael Conforto in 2021, especially given how his hamstring injury nagged him all year long, and say that this is the Michael that we should be expecting. No, it's not. It was a shell of what he usually is. And down the stretch, he proved to have normal Michael Conforto numbers in the last couple of months of the season. So I do think Conforto's destined to absolutely bounce back next season. But question is it going to be with the Mets or not? That's a big question mark right now. And the belief from everything that we're seeing, because in case you guys are not aware on how this process works, is the Mets are going to have from now, at the time of recording this being Wednesday, November 3rd, up until Sunday this week, to give their qualifying offers out to their eligible people, and that is going to be in Michael Conforto and Noah Syndergaard. All the reporting at this point hasn't suggested otherwise, so we're going to go with the belief that the Mets are in fact going to offer Michael Conforto a qualifying offer, and more than likely Michael Conforto is going to deny that. That's been reported already before we even got to this point over the past month plus. So Michael's going to want more than a one-year deal. And while I would love it if he signed a qualifying offer, I think it benefits both sides greatly. He's probably going to be looking for a deal upwards in that at least 5-year range. There's been comps to potentially the George Springer type deal where Springer got 150 plus million over 5 years last free agency. The Mets decide to hold out on him and let the Blue Jays snag him. And Conforto, who's a couple years younger, has a higher ceiling right now in my mind. George Springer is a great player as it is, but something that I've always advocated with Michael is the fact that he is still very young, and I do think that he has that potential to hit a peak in his game that we haven't seen yet. Now, do I think Michael Conforto is a superstar player, someone that is going to absolutely dominate the Mets as being their leader offensively? No, but I don't think that's something that Mets fans should ever have the perception of him being either. Conforto is a role player. He is someone that knows how to spread the field when he is hot and doing what he's supposed to be doing as a lefty bat that has hit major strides in his development against lefty and lefty pitching. He came in the league as a one-dimensional hitter. Then shortly after, after bouncing in between AAA and the Mets, he finally figured himself out over the past couple of years, having respectable numbers against lefties. This year was a different story, and it does look like that went directly in hand with the completely horrendous offensive approach the entire Mets team had. And how much you want to blame that on Rojas, on the hitting coaches, you can do whatever you want, but the Mets just across the board were horrendous when it mattered most with runners in scoring position. But lefty on lefty, Conforto did not benefit well this year. I don't think that's going to be the case tomorrow. However, I do think that he is going to bounce back just fine next season, I should say, and beyond. But I don't see the Mets, from everything that we've seen at this point, and again, whoever they hire, if they make these decisions with the new hires, assumably that they get them in by time, I still don't see a world right now where the Mets give Michael Conforto a contract at all similar to what he was hoping to get as an extension heading into the season. As we know, Francisco Lindor was given that $300+ million contract over 10 years. And Michael Conforto was on the outside looking in for an extension, had to go into the year with that looming over his head. So the Mets, as of right now, it would be, in my mind, not a smart move to part ways with Michael Conforto, because he does feel like a guy that is going to be a thorn in their side. It'll be a Zach Wheeler situation in my mind if they let him walk, knowing what point he's at in his career. And I get it's difficult when you know how bad a team was offensively and just overall their core group needs a shaking up heading into next year. You can't run it back with the same core group and expect things to be the same, even with a different coach. That just it's very slim that we could see a huge turnaround, 180 and 9-day difference with this production. So Conforto, he's in a spot. He's going to be looking for a multi-year deal from everything that we've seen at this point. And we'll talk about him again in regards to when the Mets actually make it official that they have parted with him, that he signs elsewhere, and how will they replace him, or in the scenario where the Mets do sign him. And while I don't think it's a sure thing that Conforto can't be re-signed, because remember, folks, just because a player denies a qualifying offer does not mean that he cannot be signed for a multi-year deal. But the point is that from the Conforto send-off to everything that's approached this point, we may very well have seen Michael Conforto's final days as a Met. And as someone who loves Michael Conforto more than anything, it really does upset me. It definitely does. It's something that I hope the Mets can keep, because the Mets need to make it as clear as possible that in this scenario where they do part ways with Michael Conforto. And again, guys, if you guys have been letting me know your thoughts on Conforto in the chat, please make sure to continue doing so. See a lot of people in here that are just chiming in. Thank you so much. Smash that like and subscribe button for your boy. But Conforto is a guy where if you let him go, you absolutely positively need to do a couple things. One, you need to make sure that his replacement is respectable. Okay. We need to make sure that there's someone in that spot that can handle right field just fine and provide similar, if not better, offensive production. And that's something that very well could cost the Mets more, depending on if they go down, say, the free agent route for that, than what they would even be giving to Michael Conforto. And that you're more than likely giving money to a guy that's a couple years older than Michael, at least 30, 31 plus, because we talked about a lot of those options, and we will in a separate video on the channel again in the coming weeks. But if you part with Michael, you automatically are losing a guy that is going to bring offensive production next year, regardless if you want to believe it or not, for whatever team he's going to be with and beyond. So the Mets are in a spot where if they part with him, it is what it is. They just need to make sure that they get the proper replacement in there. And really, just again, this in my mind, it would be foolish for them to part with Michael Conforto on a deal, say sub 100 million, and he goes somewhere else and flourishes while he's still in his prime, when the Mets now have a hole at the position, have Brandon Nimmo, who's a free agent after the 2022 year, and don't even know what they're doing with left field at this point. So there's a lot of uncertainty with their outfield. And again, all it takes is for them to make the proper moves to ensure that everything's going to be okay. But no less, this is a bridge that may very well have, taken its course and may have, I shouldn't say burnt, but it definitely looks like it's a sinking ship right now. And we'll see if that'll stay true or if the Mets could somehow, some way sway Conforto, who is a Scott Boras client, as we know, to stay with the Mets on a multi-year deal. Because again, qualifying offer just looks slim to none. But before I go further, I'm going to read some of your comments now, folks, about Conforto. Larry with the $2 donation. Thank you for the donation, Larry. That means a lot. Spending cheap, Sandy, then he will let player go. The Mets aren't going to be cheap in regards to the offseason. I assure you that. They're going to blow through their luxury tax threshold. Money isn't an issue. It's the matter of how much do they want to commit to Michael, really, when they didn't even have confidence in him with getting an extension done going into the year. And that's something that I didn't resonate well with, just because at that point, Michael, especially coming off of the short year, he was the best player for the Mets outside Dom Smith, right? And as poor of a year he had, we wouldn't even be having this discussion if it wasn't for him being a pending free agent. So unfortunately, injuries and a lackluster offense came at the worst time for the Mets and Michael Conforto, and that might be the result. But keep in mind that all teams that are going after him in free agency, they will give him a pretty penny should he walk, because they're going to evaluate him on not what he's done to this point, but what he's going to do. That's how the free agent market works. They're not going to look at 2021 and say, oh, this is the Michael Conforto that we expect. No, They know how to properly evaluate players, and they're going to look at how is he going to do in 2022, 2023, 2024, however long, say, a 5+ year contract would be. Eli, channel anniversary is coming up in December, buddy. So we're getting close. We are 50 likes so far. Thank you so much again, folks. Help us get to 100. Can I explain what a qualifying offer is? Okay, so in a nutshell, just in simple terms, a qualifying offer is when the Mets give a 1-year contract to Conforto on really what he would be, I believe what he would be currently making is something along those lines. I'm trying to think of, it's basically like a 1-year deal on what he would be currently making, and it's really a prove-it deal for the most part for qualifying offers. Marcus Stroman's a prime example. Stroman was making just under $19 million on a qualifying offer heading into the year. He betted on himself. Now he's a free agent, and he's going to be looking for a contract, very pretty. He's a guy that can very well see himself cracking $100 million, depending on the term of the deal. So, yeah, that's how qualifying offer works, and that's the same going to be said with Thor that we will be getting into shortly. What's up, Bags? How's it going, my man? Conforto seems to play well when expectation is not high on him. I at times I can definitely see that when he's kind of under the radar. Conforto's not someone that I see leading this offense. I don't think he should be having that pressure on his shoulders either. Tyler, someone told me Castellanos' stats are based on a stadium. He doesn't hit like that on the road. Is that true? This year, yes. Castellanos was a far greater hitter in Cincinnati than he was on the road this year. So, yes, that is true to a certain extent. That doesn't go for his entire career splits, however, but this year, especially given the Reds have a great hitter's park, yes, he was definitely a better hitter at home than he was away. I would definitely like a Conforto multi-year and a Thor qualifying offer to multi-year down the road, knowing both are performers who had a down period in 2021. Okay. Want Conforto to stay, but I don't think he will. I think you and I are in the same boat, Dave. Let alone you're not going to win any championships with Conforto. I mean, that's a fallacy, Rocky, considering there's nothing to prove that anyone else the Mets currently have is going to win them a championship. I think that's a very poor take, in my opinion. Every player who does qualifying offer gets $18.4 million. Okay, that makes sense then, because I know it's always been in that 18 range. Okay, folks, I'm seeing a lot more thoughts on Conforto here. Continue to roll them out. I'm going to read them as we go. But now I'm going to pivot into the next person that's on this list. And this is someone that, really doesn't come off surprising me. Thanks for the memories, Conforto. He'll rake elsewhere. You're killing me, Michael. You're probably right, though. But, I'm hoping that the Mets can try and keep him personally. I would just like to add about Michael again. I know he had a down year, but he is 100% going to bounce back. Whether that's with the Mets or not, that's something that we will see. We were going to be the World Series champs this year. I mean, yes, there was endless hype going into the year. I was not someone that thought the Mets would win the World Series this year, though. I would just like to clarify that. I thought the Mets had a very good chance of winning the division, but even then, I did not think the Mets were going to go and win the World Series. So, thankfully, I didn't go that far with a rather biased prediction, if you will. And yes, Eli, the 1-year anniversary is coming up. But let's get into Noah Syndergaard now, folks, because Thor is someone that, only had a couple outings this year coming off of Tommy John surgery. And I really don't think there's much of a discussion that needs to be done here. He's made it noted already through reports that he would like to return to the Mets, and he would be grateful if the Mets gave him a qualifying offer. So I think it's pretty much inevitable that Noah Syndergaard is going to be granted the qualifying offer on that 1-year deal, $18+ million, and that he's going to accept it. He's going to bet on himself, and this will be a huge evaluation year for Noah Syndergaard after, being out for upwards of 2 years now with Tommy John just finally making his return. He's going to start throwing breaking balls in the offseason, something that he did not do while he got ramped up and back up in the bigs. He was only throwing changeups and fastballs So now he can start working on the curveball, the slider, that fun stuff again this offseason. And Noah is a guy that I think the Mets absolutely need for this rotation, given the uncertainties that are the case with everyone. We need to see exactly what Noah can provide now, having a normal offseason and hopefully be impactful as every fifth day starter in this rotation. And while I don't think the Mets should evaluate the offseason in the instance where they believe that Noah is going to be the Noah of old, because again, we need to see, he needs to get stretched out. It's going to take, this stuff takes time, and you have to make sure that there's no setbacks during this either. So in my mind, the Mets absolutely need to make sure that they operate in the scenario where they have little expectation for Noah in 2022 when it comes to addressing the rotation. Having said that, hopefully they address the rotation just fine, add depth, and Noah is back healthy and ready to go and could actually stretch out and go fairly deep in games throughout the season. That way you have more, you have a good issue there. That means you have more pitchers than you know what to do with. The Mets proved heading into this season that even after adding numerous pitchers to their rotation or outside the rotation, Joey Lucchese's of the world, Jordan Yamamoto's, even the Jared Eichhoff's, even though, you know, Eichhoff is Eichhoff. No less, the Mets added all these guys, and they still had little pitching depth throughout the year when all their injuries occurred because they got decimated like no tomorrow in typical Mets fashion. So to really kind of touch things on Noah, I don't think it needs to be that deep of a discussion. I don't think he's going anywhere. I think Noah Syndergaard is destined for a qualifying offer until proven otherwise, and I fully anticipate that he will accept it because he's literally made it open to the public that he would. So why would he completely turn his mind now? And this is something in regards to the Mets, you know, president baseball operations GM search, where they don't need a president or a GM to make these qualifying offers. At least that's easy going. Okay. Definitely I would prefer if they had hires in to really evaluate everything going on right now. But with the deadline of being Sunday at the time being live here on those qualifying offers, they're going to have to get it done soon. And I expect them to do so. Syndergaard is definitely needed for depth and eventually returning as an ace under DeGrom. Can't lose pitchers and need plenty of pitchers to go forward. Make him a closer. Not going to happen, Hector. I promise you that. What's up, amazing Mets cards? What's up, Ed? How's it going? And we will get to Stroman shortly, guys. You know, let's not jump the gun just yet. We'll get to Stro. I'm just seeing what your thoughts are here. What team would give him more than a qualifying offer? I do think that there's potential that other teams could, but Noah doesn't want to go anywhere. He's made that abundantly clear. I really do not see Noah going anywhere, and I stand by that. He's probably one of, if not the most confident player that we have on this list, in my mind, and actually returning to the Mets. I think it starts with Noah, and then you go down from there. Noah will accept the qualifying offer. He needs to come back and earn the big money. I tend to agree with you. Hope that Syndergaard bets on himself like Stroman did and has similar type production. That's the goal. I mean, yeah, again, the Mets, it would benefit them so much if they can have this type scenario come to fruition. And I think it's easy to forget, folks, just how damn good Noah Syndergaard is. And again, I understand it's something where you have to make sure you're not trying to look at him that he'll be the Noah of old, because the velo may go back up to, 98, 99. But something that Jacob deGrom proved quite well this year is that just because you have the best velo in baseball and it's not even close with Jacob deGrom as a starter, that doesn't necessarily result in good things happening. That definitely looks like a factor to some extent. We don't necessarily know, but in the issues that deGrom had throughout the year, that wasn't from swinging the bat. And Noah is in a day and age where people can catch up to Heat. 98, 99 is common nowadays in baseball. So Noah, with the assumption that he will get his velo up, the velo is not going to be as much of an X factor for him as I think, it originally was when he first came into the MLB. When Noah first burst on the scene, in the mid 2010s, it was different then. His release point was different. 94 sliders were unheard of. Jacob deGrom did that this year, but Jacob deGrom really showed a lot of what Noah Syndergaard used to be, especially in his early days. Not to the same dominance, because Jake obviously was literally, he was godly. But Noah, with his velo, back then, players had a harder time catching up to it just 5 years ago than they do now. Times have changed, and Noah has to adapt to that for someone who's only seen limited live batters in the MLB, including those couple instances this year. Over the past 2 years, he hasn't seen much. So these hitters are getting better. The velo is something that, while we all love, he needs to make sure that he has command on that slider. He needs to make sure that he's utilizing the changeup, the curveball, every other pitch that he possibly has to the best of his abilities, and have more versatility in his arsenal. Because if he gets too dependent on the fastball, it's not going to look pretty. I feel pretty confident in that. So fastball velo, I'm not worried about. It's really about him coming together, being comfortable, being able to eat some innings and get in a groove that'll be gradual throughout the season, with the assumption that, one, he's with the Mets, which I believe will be happening, and two, that he's in a scenario where he's healthy and actually being a core part of this rotation next season and beyond. Hold on, folks. I'm just trying to pull up something about Noah's numbers quick. And again, guys, if you're enjoying the live stream, thank you all so much for chiming in again. And whether you're watching this live or on replay, appreciate your support. We're getting awfully close to 10,000 subscribers, so please help us get there. If you guys like consistent content, we got great stuff coming out tomorrow. We'll have another live stream tomorrow. We may have an individual video before that as well on the topic that broke earlier today. So plenty of things that are going to be discussed. And yeah, I've honestly been refraining from talking about certain things because of just how this President Baseball Operations GM searches went. It has been exhausting and it has prohibited me from making certain content because we need to get these hires in before I can really start diving in further about certain either free agent options, trade options to a certain extent, roster configuration, also like all these things. So they need to get this done so that way that focus can be done with and we get on to the next aspect of this offseason. Where is... Okay, folks, to enlighten you guys on just how dominant Noah Syndergaard has been in his career, that I think gets overlooked. And I've talked about him in a separate video, too, on if the Mets should re-sign Noah Syndergaard. So please make sure to check it out, guys, if you haven't already. I have it in a playlist on the channel, I believe, for Mets free agents. Check it out. But Noah, last time he pitched in a full season was 2019. He pitched 197 innings. That was the most innings by a decent amount that he's pitched in his career. He did have an up and down year that year, as we know, 4.28 ERA, but still had dominant stuff. 202 strikeouts, second best in his career. In 2018, a 303 ERA and 150 innings pitched, 155 strikeouts. He's just an absolute horse. And his biggest year, as we know, came in 2016. 218 strikeouts, 2.6 ERA. Noah still has a 3.3 career ERA on his resume, including a 9 ERA and only 2 appearances towards the end of the 2021 season. So don't even count that in my mind. But this is someone where if the Mets can get a healthy Noah Syndergaard, control on his arsenal, the Mets could really have a dynamic duo, if not trio, for next season. And again, things need to go right for sure. I'm not betting on it. Like I said, I'm not betting on Noah at all, but I do believe he will come back to the Mets, and I do think it'll be the right move. Is there specific topics I can't talk about because of copyrights? I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that, because I can't be copyrighted for discussing a topic. I could be copyrighted for involving certain footage and things like that. Yes. But, I wouldn't say that that's prohibited me content-wise with things. It actually shouldn't say that. Copyright definitely prohibits content-wise, just because of the amount of footage I use and things of that nature, because there's a limit with what you can use with MLB and stuff while staying monetized. So, for instances in the future where I do not have monetized videos because I need them to be lengthy or something, maybe more documentary type, that's where, copyright sucks, but it is what it is. I'm going to just handle not getting paid. Dave with $2 donation. Thank you again for the donation, Dave. That means a lot, my friend. Hi in the chat for Dave. Thor will strike the hammer down, LFGM. I hope so, buddy. Yeah, I don't think he's going anywhere. How is Jake's arm? It seems like his health is okay. I know a report just came out with Jake that it looks like him having an MRI and having his arm in a situate like up for an hour in an MRI tube, which I've done before. I can tell you myself, my arm was really stiff and uncomfortable after that. He said that very well could have been a culprit into his continued injuries this year, saying it did more harm than good. So in typical Mets fashion, they obviously had issues when it came to approaching their players health-wise this year. But it does look like, from what I've seen, that there's plenty of optimism with Jake going into next season. We need to give him a multi-year deal if we keep him. I wouldn't say we need to, Rob, because it really does feel like a qualifying offer is pretty strong. Not guaranteed, but it feels more strong than anything else. And Gigi's doing great, Nick. Thanks for asking. Maybe if you guys get lucky, you'll see her in this one. Not sure, though. It depends on the mood she's in. Winter meeting starts in December, but the CBA could have a direct impact on that. It could halt things. But with saying that, folks, now let's get into the third player here, and that is Marcus Stroman. Show is probably one of the more controversial players for the Mets this year, and not deserving in my mind. I think, controversy with Stroh comes with stuff more so on who he is as either personality, and whether you like him personally or don't. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. I personally don't have an issue with Stroh. I think he's been really good for the Mets. He was the most reliable pitcher for the Mets this year. There's no denying that. He stayed healthy. And after not pitching the year prior because he took out during the pandemic, he opted out. Awfully impressive. Stroman absolutely is a priority for the Mets. It needs to be a priority for the Mets. And while I do think that there's a very good chance Stroman will not be with the Mets next year, the same could be argued that he will be with the Mets next year. This is really going to come down to how stubborn Stroman may be in free agency with the money he's looking for, what type of market we're looking at, because this is actually a fairly flooded free agent market when it comes to starting pitchers. A lot of veterans in there as well, along with some guys that are a little bit, under that point with Stroman. And Kevin Gausman would be a great comp as well, because they're both really searching for a similar deal, looking for around, a 5-year deal or so. At least I'm trying to similar to Zach Wheeler. I know Stroh wants probably 5 years, $100+ million. How much higher? I don't necessarily know to this point, but Stroh is someone that, the numbers speak for themselves this year. So say what you will about Stroh, whether you like him or don't like him. Same thing goes for any other player, because we have another guy that was fairly controversial this year to Mets fans, and Javier Báez, that we'll be discussing shortly. Stroman was the only reason why the Mets had sustainability in this rotation all year long. A career year for Marcus Stroman, 3.02 ERA, 33 games played, 179 innings pitched, 158 strikeouts, 1.15 whip. Just absolutely steady all year long. You knew you were getting 5-6+ innings out of him every fifth day. And Stroman is someone that the Mets cannot afford to lose without putting someone in place in the rotation that can handle things just as good, if not better. Okay. I don't necessarily believe the Mets are going to want a rotation that's heavy with the dollars this year, meaning that it feels unlikely that the Mets would say keep Marcus Stroman and also go after Kevin Gausman, or go after potentially a big name that is going to be on a shorter term deal, whether that's say a Zach Greinke or Clayton Kershaw, who I don't see leaving LA. However, same thing goes with Scherzer, Justin Verlander, those types. The rotation is going to be huge for the Mets to address this offseason. But when it comes to priorities, it starts and ends with Marcus Stroman. In my mind, you cannot even consider not putting forth a heavy effort and re-signing this man. In the prime of his career, yes, he's going to be looking for a good payday, and rightfully so. But if the Mets don't have Stroman next year and they don't do anything significant to this rotation, man, oh man, are they going to have problems. It's going to be a scenario where the Mets may upgrade offensively this offseason, but if they don't address this rotation, they're going to have the same amount of problems they've had in years past. Great offense, poor pitching. Look at 2019, 2020, prime example. 2020, especially because the rotation was decimated. Bullpen was shaky. The Mets need to have a balance here, okay? And whether that's getting some sneaky players that maybe play above expectations or just making those big name signings that you need to make, Marcus Stroman, in my mind, absolutely needs to be a priority. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. $5 donation from Gabe. Gabe, thank you so much for the donation. What is my dream Mets team? I would say it varies, to be quite honest with you, Gabe. You could ask me this now, and my answer could be different a week from now. Thank you again for the donation, though. I appreciate that. But my dream Mets team, and again, I'm just responding to this again. Thank you for the donation, but I'll get to all your comments, folks. And let me know in the chat right now, folks, if you're in favor or against the Mets re-signing Stroh, if you think they should, please let me know. But quick thing on Mets team, I'm not going to really discuss bullpen because that's a little hard to grasp, but dream rotation for me, dream. We're talking dream, not reality, dream. Jacob deGrom. Noah Syndergaard, that's healthy. That's playing good. It's Taijuan Walker. Kevin Gausman, my goodness. One of Kevin Gausman or the other big name free agents, like a Scherzer, a Greinke, and whoever you're going to have potentially else in there, like a Cookie if he's healthy. Starting lineup, Pete Alonso at first, DH. And again, we're talking dream. So if we're talking dream, I'll go the lengths of saying Freddie Freeman at first base because he'll be a free agent. Alonso at DH, even though I know Alonso wants to be at first base more often than not. And Freddie Freeman is not leaving Atlanta. So again, this is why we're saying dream. But outside of that, Alonso at first base, Nick Castellanos in DH, second base, Javier Báez, shortstop, Francisco Lindor, third base, Carlos Correa, one of Carlos Correa, J. Ram, or Chris Bryant. Matt Chapman, I would be very content with that. I'd be satisfied with any of those four, to be honest with you. But definitely, I would say J. Ram and Carlos Correa probably are towards the top of that list. Outfield, Starling Marte, center field, one of him or Byron Buxton. Again, I've talked about this plenty. Left field, plenty of options, but I would want Brandon Nimmo in left because I wouldn't have him in center. And then right field, I would want Michael Conforto there. And if Michael is not there, then there's some other routes that they could potentially go down that I'll talk about soon. But I would prefer Michael there still. Stroman deserves a big offer from us. Don't care if it backfires. He earned money this year. He definitely earned money this year. I do care if it would backfire, however, but he definitely earned money. Niles says Stroman keep him. So I think the days of complete games are done for starting pitchers in playoffs. No, I don't think they're done. They're just not as likely. They're just not as common, I should say, given how much bullpens are utilized for good nowadays. Stroman needs to stay around, says Andrew. Mets should use a six-man rotation. I don't see that happening, but again, depth is always a great thing. James, how's it going, my friend? Thank you so much for the kind words as always, buddy. Appreciate you. Cookie Carrasco did not have Tommy John surgery, Bruce. I'm not sure where you saw that. He had surgery to deal with, I believe a bone spur, but he should be ready to go next year. But again, there is still uncertainty with him on him not having a normal offseason again, him being about to be 35 years old, if not already. How is he going to bounce back? I have a lot of uncertainties with this Cookie, unfortunately. It's not his fault, just unfortunate. Buxton is 100% my man crush, and I do not care to say that. I would love that man on the Mets. Tatis would not be my dream lineup because even though it's my dream lineup, I still discuss players that have actual potential. There's zero potential of Tatis coming to the Mets. Acuna or Soto, no. I'm not going to just say, oh, I want Acuna, I want Soto, I want Trout. That's like fantasy league like team. That's beyond even a dream. Like I've tried to make it. I made it realistic while it's unrealistic at the same time, if that makes sense. And guys, we're getting awfully close to 100 likes already in the stream. So if you haven't already, please make sure to smash that like and subscribe button. Again, folks, thank you so much for the support. It's always appreciated. How long do you think the work stoppage lasts? Oh, Al, there's no certainty on, a halt in the CBA because of those discussions, how long it would be. We have no clue right now. But folks, let's pivot now into someone who is fairly controversial as well. Someone that I am a big fan of. And I think there's a lot of optimism on the front of him returning with the Mets, even though that the hires that come in could have a say in this. But that is, of course, in Javier Báez. El Mago, as we love to call him, was acquired by the Mets at the MLB trade deadline. And Báez did something quite remarkable during his stint with the Mets. And I discussed this in my individual video on him. So if you guys haven't checked that out already, please make sure you do, because I broke down all the numbers on that. I don't have them on hand like I did for that video. But Báez hit another level with the Mets. And while I do not believe that Javier Báez is going to be this on-base demon in years to come for the Mets in the scenario where they resign him, there is no doubting that there was a night and day difference with his performance from the Cubs in 90 games to his performance in under 50 with the Mets this year. Javier Báez's total numbers in 2021, a 265 average, 319 on base, 494 slugging, 813 OPS, respectable numbers. 31 bombs, 87 RBIs, and 138 games played. In 91 games with the Cubs this year, Báez had 22 bombs, 65 RBIs, 131 strikeouts, and a 248 average, including a 775 OPS. During his time with the Mets in under 50 games this year, Báez had 9 home runs, 22 RBIs, 13 walks when he only had 15 in 91 games with the Cubs. Only strikeouts, he only had a total of 53, 299 average, 371 on base, 371 on base. This guy's pushing north of 886 OPS during his stint with the Mets. Now I ask you, Mets and baseball fans, Javier Báez, are you as a fan able to get over the thumbs down notion? Now, this is something that I have completely gone over, because the only way to make up for something that would upset the fans is to help the team win and perform well. Help perform well. That's exactly what he did. He did everything that we could possibly ask for. And reports have indicated, according, to SNY of the past month, that there's already early speculation that as long as the Mets give a respectable offer to Báez, he's going to take it multi-years. This is someone that could be ranging from a 4 or 5 year deal to upwards of 6, maybe even 7. Odds are Báez, I'm going to assume he's probably going to want 6. But the Mets will probably land him in that 5 range, which I think would be a nice sweet spot as your long-term second baseman. I think that there's a pretty strong likelihood that Báez returns to the Mets. I do not think he's going back to the Chicago Cubs, even though I know every Chicago Cubs fan keeps saying that. I think that's, blasphemy. I don't see that happening at all. I really do think that Javier Báez will stay here. And while that could, of course, it would impact the Mets to a certain extent with addressing maybe other parts of the lineup or how they're going to go about free agency, because as we know, there's a flooded market with infielders this year. No less, between Javier Báez's connection and close friendship with Lindor, being able to handle second base without a problem, while that's a secondary position, this man brings elements to the game the Mets simply don't have in their roster, and they need more of it. They need a guy that's aggressive. They need a guy that's not afraid to steal bags and have the best swim move dive to actually get into bag no tomorrow. He's a top slugger. He's usually top 5, top 10 every year and exit velo. He's just absolutely nuts. Yes, he's big swing and miss. Yes, he's going to continue to strike out. But clearly between him being with Lindor, being with a different club, it's had a different effect on his approach. And when you look at Báez's numbers throughout his career, they would indicate that, yes, he's always been a heavy strikeout guy, but he also has been known for being a higher average guy too. Do not look at numbers, say, that he's going to be a 250 average hitter. No, this is a Báez that throughout his career is expected to be a 270 to upwards of a 285, 290 average guy. On base wise too, he's fluctuated throughout his career. He's someone that hasn't been crazy on base. His average on base is 307, but that very well could be to the point of gain on average of maybe upwards of 320 plus with the Mets. So Baez, I think there's so much more reasons to keep him versus them part ways with him. The Mets need a guy like this in their offense to really jolt things going. And he was easily one of the few bright spots for the Mets when everything was going wrong for them in the downward stretch of the season. So Baez, along with Stroman, I think is a huge priority for them. And I think that there is a far greater likelihood of Baez staying with the Mets versus Stroman if we're comparing the two. $10 donation from Dan. Dan, thank you so much for the donation, my man. I appreciate you. The second they re-sign Baez, I'm buying his jersey. Attaboy. I almost feel like maybe I should buy it soon because I bought Lindor's jersey before he got extended because I was that confident. My confidence is pretty high with Baez, so I might do the same thing. Gerald, you have completely given up on McNeil after only one bad year. Gerald, I'm not who you're referring to on giving up on McNeil. I haven't given up on McNeil at all. I don't want to see him out of the Mets lineup. And he's someone we'll actually be talking about again as soon as potentially tomorrow as a hint at a topic. McNeil, the big issue I see with him outside of some things that happen with his attitude is his role on the club. It has nothing to do with him having a down year. McNeil's going to bounce back, and I think he's going to be a 300 average hitter next year or close to. Not concerned about McNeil's production. I'm concerned with where McNeil has a fit with the Mets because with the assumption they re-sign Baez and the assumption that they address third base, are the Mets going to really platoon McNeil as a utility guy? They might. They might go down that route, but there's uncertainty with him for good reason. I'm not someone that wants to see him gone, however. I do think he's going to bounce back just fine. And I know that the Mets do part with him, regardless on if that being the right move for them or not, with the type of players that they bring back. There's no denying McNeil's going to dominate. He's absolutely a stud for being on base. And I do think that this year was an anomaly for him as well, in part with his injuries. $100 likes. Awesome. Thank you all so much for the likes and the subscriptions, folks. I appreciate that. You guys are the best. Thank you so much again for the support. Let's see here. Yeah, the McNeil topic we'll be getting into again shortly. So I'm going to just leave it at that. We've talked about him on the channel already. He was in my video. That is actually the best video performing on the channel so far, over 80,000 views. So thank you so much for that, folks. On 5 players that won't return to the Mets next year, McNeil was one of those discussion pieces. So make sure to check it out if you haven't already. But again, I'm not someone that wants to see McNeil gone. I can't tell you that he will be on the Mets next year because I think it would be foolish to guarantee it. See a lot of people in favor of keeping Baez. John, we're going to be talking about Epler tomorrow, my man. So stay tuned for that. That's what tomorrow's live stream is going to be about, unless breaking news happens. Good. I'm glad. I will say, and I've had a lot of people reach out to me too. It seems like a lot of you guys that were originally not on the Javi Báez train, and a lot of you guys have said this to me personally, either on the channel or on social media, that he's really, it's hard to turn on Javi Báez. Let me put it that way. He did everything he possibly could and then some for the Mets to prove that he should be re-signed. And I do think that he will be. So to this point, outside of 4 players that we have discussed, and Michael Conforto, Noah Syndergaard, Marcus Stroman, Javi Báez, I only have pretty strong confidence in 2 of those 4. That being Noah Syndergaard and Javi Báez returning to the Mets. Conforto and Stroman are as up in the air as ever in my mind. But I do think there's far more security with Thor and Báez at this point. And of course, until I'm proven otherwise. Hopefully I'm not. But with saying that, let's get on to the next couple players now, folks. This one, oh my goodness. This is a man that I do want to touch on separately again throughout the offseason, potentially in a different video. So again, we'll see if that can come to fruition. But the Mets went into this year with only 1 southpaw in their bullpen. No, it wasn't Brad Hand. No, it wasn't Justin Wilson. It was this guy named Aaron Loup. And what did Aaron Loup do in his first year as a New York Met, veteran southpaw in that bullpen? He was arguably the best reliever in baseball this year, and something that doesn't get talked about nearly enough. He had the best ERA among relievers in baseball this year. 65 games, appearances, 56.2 innings pitched for Aaron Loup, 6-0 win-loss record, 0.95 ERA. I have never seen such dominance from a lefty in the Mets organization as a fan. What remarkable what Aaron Loup did. It's not even a joke. And Loup already made it known. He said going into the offseason that he would like to come back to the Mets. The Mets are definitely going to bring him back. It's going to be on a multi-year deal. If I had to assume for Aaron Loup, he's probably looking at, given the fact that I believe he's 30. I could definitely see Aaron Loup on at least a 3-year deal. Just truly jaw-dropping how good Aaron Loup was this year, and doesn't get talked about nearly enough because 1, he's a reliever, and 2, he's Aaron Loup. No one knew Aaron Loup until this season. Let's be real. This is a guy that prior to this year had a respectable 2.52 ERA with the Tampa Bay Rays in 2020 shortened season. Before that, however, he was out all of 2019 with injury. The year before that, he spent time with 2 different clubs because he was dealt. The majority of his career he's been with Toronto, but he was with the Phillies. I didn't even realize he was with the Phillies. I forgot about that. And the Maple Leafs. I'm thinking about the wrong Toronto team. And the Blue Jays. The guy had a 4.54 ERA in 2018, 3.75 the year before that, 5-year ERA the year before that, 4.46, 3.15, 2.47, 2.64. So like a normal reliever, he's definitely fluctuated throughout his career. And I do not think Aaron Loup is going to be a 0.95 ERA type pitcher next year. But he is going to be a guy that's going to get a new contract, and yes, it's going to come from the Mets. If the Mets do not re-sign Aaron Loup, I will literally riot. We will have a riot on this channel. We will march. Maybe we'll just march down our respective streets and record it. I'm not sure what we would do. But no less, Aaron Loup, absolute priority. Have to make sure you bring this guy back. Cannot say enough good things. Literally magical. This is a guy that very well could be utilized potentially, depending on, especially on who the Mets hire as manager. He could be utilized as your closer next year if you don't feel comfortable with Edwin Diaz with every matchup. That's something that I felt that Rojas didn't do nearly enough this year, given how dominant we actually saw Aaron Loup be against both righties and lefties without a problem. So Aaron Loup brings flexibility. You can utilize him in multiple ways. He's been an opener this year. He's been in the setup. He's been in the 7th spot. He's literally been everywhere that the Mets could have asked him, and he's thrived. Bring him back. He's coming back. No doubt in my mind. Aaron Loup, we love him. Mr. Busch Light, enjoy your beer, my friend. I'm up for the riot. You guys are fine. Eddie Rosario, we may very well be talking on the channel soon. I do think that he is an option for the Mets, but he's not. I don't think he should be a top option. Let's put it that way. I've come around a bit on him before. I do think that he could be a fit, but I don't think that he, among the options that are available right now, I don't think that he should be a top priority, if that makes sense. Does Freddie go back to the Braves? I assume so. Yeah. What's up, Ryan? How's it going? All right, folks. So we talked about Aaron Loup. I think we're all... I really don't think there's any disagreement on if the Mets should bring back Aaron Loup or not next season. So let's get into, and we're just around the halfway mark, just about, in the players that we're discussing, and it will get a little quicker just because some of them don't hold as much significance. But this is a fun discussion because this is regarding a man that, even though, yes, he is very much an old southpaw, he got the job done for the Mets and has, sneakily been really, really good. And that is, in fact, Rich Hill. Rich Hill is someone the Mets had interest in going back to last offseason that they fell short on, and they decided to let him go, and he went to the Tampa Bay Rays originally. And then the Mets trade for him prior to the MLB trade deadline because the Mets needed starting pitching depth. And Rich Hill just did what Rich Hill does. A crafty southpaw has been in the league so long now, 3.86 ERA on the year. You could argue Rich Hill was the most reliable pitcher for the Mets this year down the stretch other than Marcus Stroman. That's how good he was. And during his time with the Mets this year, a 3.84 ERA and 63 innings pitched. Rich Hill just continues to get the job done, a 3.8 ERA on his career average. So he was right on par with his career average. He has made it known that he would like to pitch again next year, and he would like to stay with the Mets potentially. But the reasons why I'm not sold on Rich Hill coming back is a couple things. One, how do the Mets really want to approach this rotation? And two, what kind of role would Rich Hill be willing to do? Because if the Mets, in a scenario where they go all in this offseason, this free agency, on the rotation, maybe add bigger names, either through the free agent or trade market, and Rich Hill's on the outside looking in, I'm sure they would love him as a potential fit in the bullpen to be a length guy, but does Rich Hill want to do that? Is he at a point in his career where he is willing to be a part of a bullpen? Or is he someone that would still like to be an everyday starter? In that case, that very well could mean the departure with the Mets, in which he would go to a club where he knows that he could still be everyday starter. He is a guy, though, at this point in his career, he still can get the job done, wants to win. I don't have a problem with Rich Hill, but at the same time, he's not someone that's going to give you consistency. He's going to give you 5 innings, but of course, you're not going to get length out of him. And that's the biggest issue. I'm not against him coming back for depth for sure, but something tells me the Mets are not going to bring him back, in part because of what his role would be and him not wanting to go to the bullpen, if I'm assuming things. But what I think is important for the Mets to do, and I've said this going into the year, heading into the season, and I'll say it again going into 2022, a southpaw in this rotation is pretty much needed, okay? David Pearson didn't give the Mets consistency this year, dealt with injuries. Who knows what his stats will be next year, if at all, in this rotation. Joey Lucchesi out with Tommy John surgery. He's not an option. Rich Hill was the only lefty in this rotation, that actually held the Mets all year long. There are some lefties the Mets can definitely consider, and we talked about a lot of them in our past video on 5 starting pitching targets for the Mets. So please make sure to check out that video if you haven't already, folks. We talked about a bunch of southpaws, but a dominant southpaw would really help bring this rotation to the next level. It's something I feel the Mets should definitely prioritize and look into heavily. But that means that if you're looking for a dominant southpaw, that could be, say, your 3 or 4. Rich Hill's on the outside looking in. So love Rich Hill, love Dick Mound, but gut feeling tells me he may not return to Queens next year. So while I wouldn't mind him back, I think this may have been the farthest that we've seen those two. Again, I could be completely wrong. That's perfectly fine if I am. I'm just going with what the gut's telling me right now, and everyone's entitled to their gut opinions as well. Grinky, we discussed in previous video, Gerald. Phil doesn't get re-signed on Burning Down City. Nick, not okay. You really love Dick Mound, I can tell. I'd like to see Thor, Stroman, Báez, Conforto, Loup, and Villar back. Okay. What's up, James? What's up, Rory? Hope you're having a good night. I am, buddy. Hope you are too. I think we're in trouble, man. I don't know why. I just have a bad feeling about this offseason. I mean, naturally, from how everything's been reported at this point, I understand why you're not feeling happy about things with this process, but I will say that it's way too soon to go the lengths of saying that, it's going to be a bad offseason. I don't think that at all. I really don't. I think that a lot is going to happen for the Mets this offseason. I just really hope for their sake that they make the right moves, make the right hires, and make the right decisions, and do not let some players go that aren't deserving to be parted with, especially in the scenario where you don't upgrade those positions or, show an adamancy that you're trying to win next year. And everything that we've learned to this point would indicate that that's exactly what Steve Cohen wants to do. He wants to win. So I'm confident that they'll get moves done. But as always, it's going to be an exhausting process like it was last offseason. Suzuki, I have looked at. I'm glad you brought him up. He's someone that could be sneakily on the Mets' radar. It wouldn't surprise me if they show interest in him at some point during free agency. As back of the rotation, he didn't have a good year with the Mariners this year. Surprisingly, he opted out of his $13 million player option, something I wasn't expecting. But yeah, I think that there's some potential with him for sure. but that's like more of like the Eduardo Rodriguez types. And I would really like to see the Mets do better for the rotation if they're able to versus guys like those. But again, with saying that, money doesn't grow on trees. They're going to go over the luxury tax threshold, but to what extent, we'll see. There's a good chance that they may allocate their biggest dollars more so with position players and rotation. In that case, then that's where we could see a guy like Suzuki come into play. Soto's not going anywhere anytime soon. Oh, you got me confused. You said the right fielder. I actually need to do my homework on him. Oh, you know what? What's the pitcher's last name? Is the pitcher's last name Suzuki from the Mariners I'm thinking of, or is it something else? I think I must have got confused because I knew that didn't look like his actual first name. Is Suzuki's last? No, is it? Shoot, why am I blanking? Oh, come on. I got to hold on. Bear with me 1 second, folks. Kikuchi. Yes. Thank you. I knew it started with a K. Yes. Okay. Kikuchi. I can't even talk. These Japanese tongue twisters. It's too much for me. But yes, Kikuchi is who I was referring to. I have to do my homework on the Japanese right fielder that's going to post. I haven't done my homework on him yet. So that's something that we can definitely discuss at another time. Would I sign Robbie Ray if it would sacrifice Stroman? Yes. And the reason being is that dominant southpaws are few and far in between. And while Stroh still may have a higher ceiling than Ray's immediate impact on this rotation and the diversity it would bring to it could be really significant. And he can go deeper in games for you potentially too. Not saying Stroh, it's a fallacy with Stroh going deep, not being able to go deep in games. He can easily go 6-7. But yes, if the Mets were in a scenario where they'd acquire Robbie Ray, but it would mean departing with Marcus Stroman, yes, that is absolutely something that I would be probably in favor of. What's up, Matthew? How's it going, my man? Thank you for chiming in. But folks, let's get on to the next player. We got to talk about a man that exceeded expectations for the Mets outside of getting picked off on first base far more than any other player in the league this year, and that is our good buddy in Jonathan Villar. Jonathan Villar signed a one-year deal with the Mets heading into the year. He looks like a short thing to actually land with the Cincinnati Reds. I think it was a John Heyman tweet, like it was yesterday back in the offseason. It was like, Villar's going to the Reds, like one-year deal of $5 million. Nope, he doesn't. He goes to the Mets. And he was a guy that was supposed to be embraced off the bench, but thanks to inconsistencies with injuries galore for the Mets, especially at third base with J.D. Davis, Jonathan Villar played 142 games this year. And what did Villar do during that time? He had 18 home runs, 42 RBIs, a 249 average. Did not look good in like the final month of the season. He really struggled in September, but 738 OPS and had himself 14 stolen bags. Jonathan Villar is a role player. Love everything about him. He's a guy that's aggressive, brings that similar type of snarl to his offensive game that we see with Javier Báez, and the Mets need that. They need that 100%. As long as Villar just stays more disciplined at first base, not getting picked off, I'm totally in favor of him. He's already said he wants to come back to Mets. There's already been early reporting of the Mets having interest in bringing Villar back. So yes, I do think that Villar, there's a strong likelihood, as long as Villar is content with not being an everyday player, then I think that there is a very solid chance he comes back to the Mets on another one-year deal or something. Keep in mind, unless Villar's mindset has changed, he signed with the Mets heading into this season knowing very well that he was not supposed to be an everyday player. He was supposed to be a role player, a bench guy, and he had to step up and be in a bigger role than what was originally asked of him heading into the season. And he did literally 18 home runs. He was one of the biggest home run hitters for the Mets this year, which tells you more about the lack of offensive production for the Mets. But still, Jonathan Villar, very solid year for him. And I would very much like to see him back with the Mets. Thomas, who did you talk to today? What's up, Josh? Thank you for chiming in, my man. see your response to this in an hour or so. I'm going to start this stream from the beginning. Okay. That's hilarious. I love that. Thank you for watching, Josh. Matthew, I'm not sure where you saw that about Steve Cohen. I think that's just something you heard. I don't necessarily know the truth behind that one. And the reporting has been as inaccurate and, inconsistent as last offseason for the Mets. So don't take any report, to heart is what I would say about everything. I remembered somewhere I would come to the Worry Mets stream every day. Yes, you would, Ryan. I appreciate that very much. I did hear about Buster Posey retiring. Yes. Crazy news. But, talk about going out with a bang. Yeah, Matthew, I'd have to find where that article. Yeah, you got to find it because I haven't seen anything. From what I saw, the reports were indicating that Sabian actually took his name out of the running because of the Mets' lack of interest, and he felt insulted by that. So he said, "Nope, I don't even want to, be of consideration anymore." Even though the Mets were never reportedly considering him. You talked to Blevins and Nito today, Thomas. That's awesome. How do you do that? Will I stream Mets games this year? Of course I will. There will be a different format coming when the season starts, though. We'll get into that another time. But in a nutshell, I think everyone's in agreement here that Jonathan Villar should come back. Now let's get to someone that I know is controversial and that I know what my stance is on. And that is regarding someone that may actually land with a rival. And this was a great point thrown out earlier today. I saw on Twitter by Pat Ragazzo, who covers the Mets, an affiliate through Sports Illustrated. And that is regarding the reliever, longtime New York Met. He's been with the Mets literally for 10 years, which is crazy. Jeurys Familia. Now, Familia, on paper, didn't have, a horrendous year, but didn't have a great year either. And the biggest thing with Familia this year, which was, the big problem by far, he was up in velo, which normally looks great to see. But also with that velo came some great hard contact from the opposing team. This year, Jeurys Familia gave up a career-high 10 home runs and only 59.1 innings pitched. Familia is someone that I was not an advocate for coming back to the Mets. I did not like when Brodie Van Wagenen signed him to that deal that made him one of the highest-paid Mets on the roster. And I think that ship has sailed with the Mets. And I think that Familia's time in Queens is done, and it absolutely should be. He's too inconsistent, I agree. And he's at a point in his career where we've already seen the best of Jeurys. While he definitely can thrive elsewhere, maybe rekindle something similar to what Hanzo Robles has done since leaving the Mets. He's had some good years, had some bad years with respective clubs. But Familia it wouldn't be surprising to see him land with the Nationals because, as Pat Ragazzo noted earlier today, and I'm glad he brought this up, basically all the Nationals coaches are from the Mets. If you guys don't know, Ricky Bones is now the bullpen coach for the Washington Nationals. The catching coach for the bullpen, I forget the guy's name. That was a long time with the Mets. He is now with the Nationals as well. Gary DiSarcina is their third base coach, among others. But the bullpen especially, Jeurys Familia has noted thanking, being appreciative of Ricky Bones throughout his career and his development. So I think that there is a solid chance that he won't not just lead the Mets, but potentially even go to the Nationals. So we'll see if that comes to fruition, just connecting two and two together. But in a nutshell, I'm not in favor of bringing Jeurys Familia back. I think that time has reached an end with the Mets, hopefully. Just someone that I don't think the Mets should be going back after. I think that they have options with their bullpen, with some guys that are getting healthy from injury too, and some external options that they can definitely seek to make up for having Familia, who just, man, he would either be rolling or he was just godly frustrating in tight games for the Mets too, where it's like, why is he even being brought in, gives up a home run, and that's that. Talk to Thomas on the reg like almost every day. So my boy Jerry, on the other hand, I talked to about his podcast and we talked for a little bit. Nothing crazy. Oh, that's awesome, Thomas. I love it. Thomas, how are you reaching out to them though? Is basically what I'm asking. Are you just talking to them on Twitter? Is that what you're referring to? Henry Blanca. Yes, that's the catching coach's name. Thank you. All right, guys. So what's everyone's final stance on Jeurys Familia in the chat? I think we're all on the same mindset here. I saw some spamming of no by Gerald too. He's like, I don't want him. Yeah, seems like you guys don't want Familia back. Don't blame you. Do not blame you. Speaking of, inconsistent relievers, let's get to the man that we all thought was going to be heading into this past season, but the Nationals took him away, and the reports indicated that Brad Hand, the southpaw, went to the Nationals because he would be solidified in a closer role, something that was not made available coming to the Mets because Edwin Diaz is our closer. And since when he arrived in the Mets at the MLB trade deadline this year, after doing absolutely horrendous, actually after the trade deadline, pardon me, after doing horrendous with Toronto, which was his second team on the year because he was dealt by the Nationals at the MLB trade deadline, had solid numbers at that point, went to Toronto, put up terrible numbers for Toronto, which really hurt their bullpen down the stretch, had a 7.27 ERA with Toronto, comes to the Mets, 16 games played towards the end of the year, has a 2.7 ERA. Brad Hand is someone that I think is pretty up in the air on if he's going to come back to the Mets or not. I'm pretty content with the Mets not going to him just because he's past his prime at this point. The velo is continuously going down for him. Brad Hand has been fairly inconsistent. And while his career, you see consistencies with the ERA, but it doesn't necessarily justify, especially this past year and what we're kind of looking at. So Brad Hand, I don't want to really see back with the Mets, but am I going to be, unbelievably upset if he stays with the Mets and signs, say, a 1-year deal or something? No, I won't be. I'm just going to want to make sure that the Mets utilize him properly. And that's going to come down to the manager more than anything, right? And who's that manager going to be that makes that decision? We simply don't know right now. So Brad Hand, remember, he was brought into the Mets not for a playoff run because he was not even eligible to be in a playoff race should the Mets crack playoffs again, thinking that they would crack playoffs, right, given their downfall. But the Mets picked him up for the sole purpose of feeling him out, seeing how he would do, gaining some reps with the Mets down the stretch, and seeing if there's any potential on picking him up, knowing that the Mets were heavy in on him heading into this past season and clearly still had interest. So Brad Hand, I'm fairly content either way. My preference would be that he doesn't return to the Mets. I think there's a solid chance he doesn't return to the Mets either. So I'm going to really leave that up to you guys in the chat, what you think will happen here, because, I think it's pretty uncertain on the Brad Hand stance. Thomas, you have Nito's cell phone number? You already know you got to slide that my way, and I'm not asking. All right, all jokes aside, though, that's really cool, though. I'm glad that you've been able to have that type of relationship with him. That's really awesome. Have a good one, Robert. Thank you for chiming in, my man. And thank you guys for the support. Help us get to 200 likes by the end of the stream, or at least at some point. Thank you all so much for the support again. Hope you guys have been enjoying this live stream too. But Brad Hand, like I said, would prefer if he didn't come back to the Mets, but I'm fairly content either way. But let's talk about another reliever someone that, if you're looking at solely ERA, you might not love. But this is a guy who has some really good stuff, and it kind of gets overlooked a bit, and that is Heath Hembree. The Mets picked up Heath Hembree earlier this year down the stretch, and Hembree, who bounced with two different teams this year between the San Francisco Giants, and we know what the Giants, the Cincinnati Reds, not the Giants. He was with the Reds, had a 6+ ERA and 45 appearances, comes to the Mets, and in 15 appearances, Heath Hembree, who has wild stuff too. It's a lot of movement going on, 3.45 ERA. I don't know what the Mets' interest is going to be in bringing back Hembree. I think that Hembree may just be end up walking because he was, not someone that I don't see them prioritizing. But if the new management that comes into play has saying anything, Hembree's underlying numbers are very strong, and I think he's actually a sneaky reliever that the Mets could get some good performance out of. So Hembree, personally, I'm in favor of bringing back. I don't really have much of an issue with him. I don't mind if the Mets really part with him either, but I think Hembree's someone that there's a decent chance that the Mets bring back for sure. Again, a career 4.19 ERA. This is someone that's been very up and down in his career for sure, like typical relievers. And relievers, what I see most with relievers is just they're all roller coasters. I think that's the best way to explain them. Like a guy's going to have a sub 2 ERA 1 year, they bounces up to 4.5, 5 next year. It's weird. There are relievers that only do well on odd years. There are relievers that only do well on even years. It doesn't make any sense, but I think that's just the fascination of what being an MLB reliever is. There's just a lot of inconsistency. Let's be honest here. But Heath Hembree, don't have an issue with him. I think it wouldn't be outlandish to see the Mets bring him back on at least a 1-year deal. And the last person, this is going to be the easiest discussion that we've had all. I really don't need to get into it much, but yes, Dellin Betances was in fact a New York Met. One could argue he was the Jed Lowry of pitching for the Mets since the Mets acquired him a couple years ago. And nothing went right for Dellin, and it's unfortunate for his sake. This is a guy that has dealt with a lot of injuries, but he's at a point in his career where it really just looks like I don't really know how much in the tank he has left. He's had some significant injuries to the point where it really feels that his future as an MLB pitcher is uncertain. We'll see exactly how much more reps he gets in the league. He was so dominant for so long with the Yankees, and then comes to the Mets, and after already being decently injured, in his final year with the Yankees, and comes to the Mets and just was never the same. Let's see how many games he actually played for the Mets. I'm double checking right now. Yeah, he only played 16 games over a 2-year span with the Mets. 7.82 ERA. Betances without the velo is just not a Betances that we're normally accustomed to across town in the Bronx. So Betances is gone. It's not even a discussion. He's not going to not just be a New York Met next year, but he might not even be in the league next year. So really by far the easiest guy to have discussion on. Was Betances another gift from Brody? Of course it was. But yeah, that's really it, folks. So to reiterate again, out of all the players that we have listed among these 11 free agents, and this does not include, folks, arbitration players, because we know we'll have arbitration coming up. What players will be, given new deals, what players will be parted with. We'll discuss that probably when it happens as well, because that's definitely coming. There's a lot of players due for arbitration too, and the Mets are not going to keep them all. I'm confident in that. They might part with some guys that may surprise you too. But out of Conforto, Syndergaard, Stroman, Báez, Loup, Hill, Villar, Familia, Hembree, Betances, the only ones that I feel pretty confident about in returning to the Mets are Noah Syndergaard, Javier Báez, Aaron Loup, and Jonathan Villar. Everyone else is either a question mark or not happening. And of course, I could be wrong here. I'm just telling you what I'm thinking from not just reports that I've seen, but also kind of gut feeling. But yes, reports for sure as well, especially with some of these guys. So out of the 11, there's only 4, right? I said Thor, Báez, Loup, VR. There's only 4 out of the 11 that I feel pretty confident will return to the Mets next year. I don't want just 4 of the 11 to return. I want to see more than that, especially the likes of Marcus Stroman, of course, and I would love Michael back too. But, changes will be had here, and the Mets will be seeking options in the trade and free agent market for sure on players that they do not bring back. What about McCutchen? No, thank you. All right, folks. With that being said, that wraps up our discussion on these free agents. So now I'm going to open this up to just a complete Q&A for the next 10 minutes, I would say, before we get out of here in this live stream or so. So please, if you got questions, feel free to ask right now. And as I mentioned already, tomorrow at the time of recording this, starting 7 p.m. Eastern time, and unless breaking news happens, we will talk about the latest news regarding the Mets present baseball operations GM search. Multiple candidates that we have not talked about yet that we will, seeing the likelihood or lack thereof on what has just been exhausting process at this point. And that'll probably be the last live stream we have talking about those candidates until next week, with the assumption that no breaking news happens over the weekend. Thoughts on Bryant? Love KB. If he hits the free agent market, I expect the Mets to be interested. Should we sign Sandy Leon? I'm assuming that's sarcasm. How badly do Castellanos splits discourage you by offering him a contract? Personally, I like Castellanos. I think he's a bat that you absolutely go after. I do believe, however, that obviously if you go for him, it will be an overpayment. But at the same time, Castellanos is someone where he didn't do good away this year in comparison to his home numbers. And Citi Field isn't a hitter's park. So I don't think Castellanos would be poor with the Mets, but I don't think he would be a consistent 300 average slugging hitter either. I do not foresee that happening at all. I think he would be far more in the realm of a Pete Alonso type, 250 to 270 average with plenty of pop in his bat, which I would be content with, knowing just how much pop in his bat you get from Castellanos. Love him. Should Ozzy get a look for manager? Kish, your guess is as good as mine. Outside of the potential managerial options we've talked about already on the channel, we do not know at all what route the Mets are going to go down manager-wise, other than pure assumption, speculation. They got to get these front office hires in first. Soler as a DH role, that I don't think that's impossible. But especially with a DH, you'd have to think that the Braves will try to keep him too. But I can understand that. I have exceptions for Castellanos, but Correa and Ray Correa would definitely be the top of that list for me too, with giving up the comp pick. You say sign Graveman, who had a great year, even though I know he wasn't the same when he went to the Astros as he was with the Mariners this year. Thor, Baez, Loup, Ray. Trade McNeil, Smith, Davis. Receive Frankie Montas and Chapman. I like the way you think, Thomas. Are we foreseeing a big strike year? We might. I really hope not. That'll suck. I'm going to be so upset if we have like a strike year where the season doesn't start on time or something. That'll not be fun. And like how it would impact the offseason. I just really hope that they can just get an agreement on the new CBA. There's so many different reasons for the search going the way it has at this point. I don't think that you could say that, Sandy's unlikable or Steve. There's so much conflicting reporting that I cannot tell you anything right now that will be factually accurate to the likes of me wanting you to take it with, somewhat certainty. It's so up in the air as to why the process has been the way it was at this point. And there's people to blame. And I also don't think it's nearly as bad as what it's being made out to be. It's just a lot. It really is. Yeah, Ron, I may be touching on that in a video tomorrow, but that isn't a surprise. We all knew it wasn't going to be a rat or raccoon. And I don't be surprised if more reports like that come out about the Mets season, about in-house stuff. I don't think it's a coincidence, and people are making note of this. I don't think it's a coincidence that literally just a couple days after Zach Scott is officially out of the organization, that we're seeing anonymous reporting with inside info like this. And maybe it's coming from Ricky Bones or, Gary DiSarcina, stuff like that, that are now with the Nationals organization. But those guys are established. So something tells me if anyone's kind of speaking up right now, it very well could be Zach Scott. Again, though, your guess is as good as mine. I'm not trying to assume, but I understand why people are trying to connect the dots. Do I think the Mets should pursue Schilt? I think that he will be among the people they consider at least. Would I rather make a move for J-Ram or Buxton? Ooh. Biasly Buxton, but realistically, what makes most sense for the Mets, given their needs, I would say J-Ram. They have a bigger need by far at third base than they do at center field because Nimmo can handle center just fine. But that's good. That's a great question. Predicting 130 to 140 game season next year. I feel like if there's a delayed start to the season, it won't be a full season. I don't think it'll be extended. What's up, Enrique? How are you doing, my friend? Would love for the Mets to go after Raquel Ferreira. There's been conflicting reports on her. I know that the Mets have an interview in place. It might have transpired already, but we will talk more about her tomorrow, regardless on if it's good or positive or negative news. Where I got the Mets chain, I honestly don't remember where I got the pendant from, but if you just look up like Mets chain, like Mets pendant, like team pendants, you'll find it. Hell yes, Thomas. I hope that happens. That would be sick. Yes, Matt Allen does have potential to be a frontline starter in a couple years. Is Starling Marte realistic for the Mets? I would say so. He should be. Let's put it that way. He absolutely should be. He makes perfect sense for them on a shorter term deal. Marte center and Nimmo in left would be beautiful, in my opinion. Want the Mets to get Chris Taylor? I'd very much be interested in him too. And don't be surprised if you see that man talked about on the channel very soon. Hint, hint. It's not like I made a thumbnail of something today or anything for a video that I still need to record. Sandy Leon is not coming to the Mets. I don't know why we're even talking about him still. No, it would be Marte in center and Nimmo in left. Marte is better. I would argue Marte is a better defender than Nimmo is. I think he's faster than Nimmo and has a stronger arm in center than Nimmo. And Nimmo is a natural is a natural left fielder versus him being center. Am I afraid to block Brett Baty at third base by going after someone? I'm not afraid by it because if the Mets go for a long-term option at third base this offseason, that tells me that they're in it to win it. And I love that, obviously. What that means for Brett Baty is a couple things. One, he could either be used as a trade chip in a major deal to acquire someone that could help the Mets long-term for a position of more need. Two, Baty is someone that could either be utilized if they try to get him in corner outfield, even though that I know he's not an outfielder, so wouldn't be likely. Maybe put him in a DH role as well with the assumed universal DH. So I don't think that in this scenario where the Mets go a long-term route for third base, I don't think Brett Baty has no say on the Mets. I think that there's still potential, but obviously there would be far more uncertainty on his future with them, knowing that his main position is blocked for years to come. We need players who play their position. I agree with that. I will say, however, I'm not against players that play secondary position full time as long as they do it well. I don't give a damn if this is, your 10th, 20th position, as long as you know how to do it and you can do it competently and you've proven that you can do it, or you've had plenty of experience there. That's all that matters to me. Dom Smith isn't a left fielder, for example. We know he's not. The numbers would indicate he's not. It's different than someone that's been utilized in all different positions, but has done them all just fine. Think about a Kike Hernandez, for example. He plays literally everywhere and does it without a problem. Chris Taylor, prime example. Jeff McNeil, to a certain extent, even though McNeil can't really handle third base that well, corner outfield is not something that's preferred. While he's better than Dom for sure, he's still someone that isn't great. But my point being is that I don't mind the Mets going for secondary position players for their spots as long as they handle it and don't handle it with a problem. Handle it without a problem. Javier Báez is second base. Perfect example. Báez is handling second base without a problem, and as long as he stays with the Mets, he'll continue to do just that. Yeah, Bryant, there's a lot of versatility with him. So yes, I don't think it directly blocks your third base prospects in a scenario where you landed Bryant. How much is Craig gain on the market? A lot. A lot. That man should easily touch at least 300 million. Báez, out of all the 11 free agents that we talked about, Gustavo, Báez is among 4 of them that I'm pretty confident will stay. Yes. Nothing's guaranteed, obviously. Anything can happen, but he's one of those that I feel pretty confident in. And guys, we're getting awfully close to 200 likes. So if you haven't already, please make sure to smash that like and subscribe button. Again, if you're enjoying this late night live stream, it's not really a late night. You guys know the drill. If you've been following the channel, last offseason, we've done live streams going mad late, like to midnight, 1 a.m., depending on breaking news type topics. But still, appreciate everybody's support. No less, happy to have you all in here as always. Baez's contract will be indicative of the years on his deal. I don't think Correa is going to have much of a say here. And I don't think Correa is going to get signed before Báez. I think Báez will get his contract before Correa does. Bryant is solid in right field. He's not a Gold Glove at all, but for his versatility, he can handle it just fine. What's up, Chris? How's it going, my man? Matthew, the reason being is that there's been plenty of indication that a qualifying offer for Thor is beyond likely. So it's not 100% yet, but there's 2 people that look like they're getting qualifying offers. It's Michael Conforto and Noah Syndergaard. So that's why. Think about the Marcus Stroman qualifying offer prove-it deal going into this year. The same would apply to Thor. Chris, oh, so you're one of the people that wants Báez to go. Okay. Respectfully, I'm on the different spectrum, but I respect your opinion, no less. All I'm saying is that if Baez does, in fact, stay with the Mets, which I do think that there's a good likelihood of that, just try to give him a chance. You know, as something that's been noted with him as well, from reports have indicated, is that Baez took accountability right away in regards to the thumbs down. I'm not sure if you guys read up about this. Happened over the past month. That article came out that he took accountability, and that resonated really well with Sandy and Steve Cohen because he said, don't blame Lindor, don't blame Pilar, don't blame anyone, blame me. This was my doing. And he said this was also my misunderstanding because this was something to really just help rally the clubhouse versus what it was as to be a target in the fans. My approach in the presser was poor. I did not, his wording was, he had a poor choice of words. He shouldn't have said what he did, but there was also misunderstandings there. And from what the reports indicate is that Sandy and Steve really appreciated that. They really appreciate his play too, how much he hustled the entire time with the Mets. And Javi's made it know that he would like to stay. And the Mets have mutual interest from what we've seen. So as long as, they're still on those similar terms, I think that there's a very good chance Baez stays. Chris, thank you for being here, my man. No worries. Appreciate the support, buddy. I like VR back too. What's up, Julian? How's it going, my man? I don't know who they're going to hire as GM or President of Baseball Operations. Trust me. I don't know, and the Mets don't know. Realistically, what starter would you see the Mets going after? I've talked about a bunch of them already, so if you haven't checked out those videos, please make sure you do. But I think there's a lot of different starter routes the Mets can go down, but it's hard to say what ones they would go down because it all depends on the future of Marcus Stroman. Marcus Stroman will dictate how the Mets approach the remainder of the rotation. But with saying that, folks, that is about to wrap up today's discussion. So I really hope you guys all enjoyed the live stream. Again, if you did, please make sure to drop a like and a subscription. Help us get a 10K for our next short-term goal. That's what we're trying to get by winter meetings if possible. So again, thank you all so much for the support. Love this conversation. I'm looking forward to doing this live stream. We'll be back live again tomorrow night. As I mentioned already, stay tuned. There might be a video in between that too. So guys, keep your eyes peeled. More great content will be coming on the channel. We'll have a lot of in-depth discussions like this. This is just the beginning for off-season type live stream discussions, really just open Q&A and talking about all the latest. So trust me when I say when all the free agent rumors come out, trade market rumors come out, all that fun stuff, roster configuration, we'll be breaking it all down as it's happening. And I'm really, really looking forward to it. So thank you again, guys, for your support. Love you all. Have a great night. And yeah, please make sure to let me know again in the comments if you're watching this sad replay, what players you would like to see stay and what players you would like to see go. But I'm out of here, folks. Have a good rest of your night, and we'll be back live on the channel tomorrow. So make sure to have those notifications all, and I'll talk to you soon. Let's go Mets, baby. Peace out.